Welcome to another episode of Nuggets with Sauce, the podcast dishing up bite-sized insights you can sink your teeth into, served with a saucy take on common leadership challenges by your host, Michelle Arentz. Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of Nuggets with Sauce. I am your host, Michelle Arentz. It's been a little while since I've done a solo without a guest, but that is what today's episode is going to be. But it is going to be action-packed nevertheless. So welcome. In a moment, I am going to dig right in, but I'm going to tell you guys up front right now that couple things. I'm going to follow my own rules. I drink my own Kool-Aid after all. So again, as an introduction, if you are not familiar with me or Nuggets with Sauce, I always start with my guests by not using our job titles, but just kind of explaining, what the hell gets us out of bed every day and gets us fired up and excited. So in that space, what really excites me is helping clients, helping businesses, help the people within their businesses be and do better. I do that through the lens of workforce development and learning and development. So my world is about giving people like you tools to put in your toolbox so that you are set up for more success in what you do in your world of work. So let's have more tools. Let's know how to use those tools. Let's make being in the work world a better thing for all of us. Because, let's be honest, we're spending half our waking hours there. Let's make it good. So that's, something that in the grandest, highest level fires me up. And you're going to figure out very quickly here in this episode, what really, how I dig down into the layers of that and the kind of insights and observations that I make in the pursuit of helping business leaders, in particular, people like you, to really start connecting the dots and thinking a little bit more about, I could be doing this better or differently. And as a result, you're going to get better business. I also am going to drink the Kool-Aid and follow my own cadence here on Nuggets with Sauce. I always ask my guests, do you have a recommended read, watch, or listen? I could give you a ton of different things there, but today I'm going to say here is a listen that I highly recommend, which actually kind of correlates to a read, but go with the listen. I am a big fan of the podcast Freakonomics Radio with Stephen Dubner. So if you want to start to look at some of the things around business, economics, how the world works in some very different and unusual ways that would really be thought-provoking and also, again, very insightful. I highly recommend. Check out the podcast. He was one of the two authors who wrote the original book that came out. That was the worst way of saying book that came out a few years ago called Freakonomics. There's actually a couple versions of that. Anyway, that's my recommendation there. All right, so let's dive into today's timely hot topic. There's going to be a bunch of nuggets here and a lot of spicy sauce. So buckle up. Let's go for a ride. So this has been in the news quite a bit. Lots of chitty chat about this. You hear people talking about this. You might be one of the people saying this. Nobody wants to work anymore. I've been having all kinds of conversations with people about, the whole quote unquote, people don't want to work anymore. I don't get it. What's wrong with them? The lazy bums, the jerks, the idiots, the this, the that. I'm hard done by. Okay, let me tell you something. And I've said this repeatedly, and I'm going to say it right here, right now, and share it with everybody. That is crap. People do want to work. Here's what they don't want to do. They don't want to work for your bullshit racket where you underpay and treat them like crap and dehumanize them. That's really the bottom line. But let's dig a little deeper and look at a few other things here. For those of you who are listening as opposed to watching this, you can either flip over and watch this episode on YouTube or carry on listening. I will do my best to also describe what I am sharing on the screen with all of you right now. So I ran across an article from MSN last week, I want to say, very recently, month of May, 2024. There, now we've dated what's going on this podcast episode, but there you have it. And I dug through and I created a bit of a kind of a mind map around what were all the things that were brought up in this article is, what's really underpinning this quote unquote, people don't want to work anymore reasons, which I thought was very interesting. And I've seen a couple other similar permutations, and I'm going to break them down. I kind of chunk them down. For those of you that are looking at this, you can see that I mapped lines all over the stinkeroo. I think there's about 20 different things on here. And then I kind of tried to color code them into different categories. So there were things that were kind of around mindset around work. There was stuff about skills and education. There was stuff about economics. There was a whole chunk of things around health and well-being. And so I'm going to break all these down a little bit more in a granular level here and what I'm talking about. But this stuff just drives me wild, as my husband would say, grinds my gears. And I say it chucks my ass that we are dealing with this kind of stuff. I'm going to start this and I'm going to stop. I'm going to bookend this sucker. And I'm going to say, this is all costly. And most of this for you as a business leader is preventable. You can do something about a lot of this. So when you look at some of these things and you think, oh my God, like there's nothing, it's all out of my control. No, it's not. There's actually quite a few things here. I'm not going to say everything, but there's quite a few things that came out of this article, that come out of these conversations, that come off this list that you could actually in your business do something about. So let's dive in. So chunk number one, and I'll go through these line by line. So chunk number one that I kind of made some relationship lines between, it starts with lack of meaningful work. What did I say? Okay, people do want to work. We all, want to have a purpose and a passion and get up in the morning and make something happen. I think that is human nature, and you can say whatever you want, but it's ages old. Okay, it doesn't mean that everybody loves their job or they're going to love their job, and that's as old as time too, right? Not everybody got to be, what they wanted to be. But meaningful work. At the end of the day, I want to go home and know that I made a difference. I did something. I helped somebody. I made something better. I did something cool. I invented something. I cured something. Whatever your magic mojo in this world is, people are looking for this. And you, as a business leader, can help make that happen in your business. Connect your employees at all levels to why you exist in the first place. Who do you serve? Should I say whom do you serve? Your customer, your passion, your purpose. What do you exist for? And this isn't just like stick a mission statement on the wall, la-di-da, right? Like make it real. Make everybody in your organization be able to clearly pinpoint, yeah, when I come in here on a Tuesday morning, I know that I matter here because what I do has this impact on this level. The closer you can get your employees to the customer and the purpose of serving the customer and however you do it, the better. Some of us get this more than others, right? Some of us just feel like I'm a worker bee in the hive and nobody notices. Yes, we do, especially when you're not here or you're not doing well. Okay, so we've got that to tackle. And again, I can only do so much in the time that we've got here on this podcast. I can dig into any one of these, and I'm sure I will be, and probably with some of my guests coming up here too. But that's item number one. Give people meaningful work. Give me a reason to get out of bed. And by the way, it's not for the paycheck. Yes, we don't work for free. Let's get that. But let's be honest that there's got to be more than money involved here. Money only goes so far to firing people up, So think about it from that level. There's a remote work preference. Now, let's get really clear about this. In the U.S. economy, maybe 20, at best, 25% of actual jobs would allow anybody to work remotely, right? My groceries are not getting on the shelf by somebody sitting on a couch with a laptop. Somebody has to physically put the food on the shelf. Somebody has to unload the truck. Somebody has to drive the truck. Somebody has to go to the farm field and bust their ass to go get the food in the first place. Let's be real about that. And let's be appreciative that in reality, it's actually kind of, in a manner of speaking, and I say this with love because I get to work in my home office, it's kind of a loudmouth minority in a manner of speaking that wants this. But that said, pandemic, like it or lump it, proved the point that it is quite possible to do a lot of that, what I'm going to call white collar, air quotes, intellectual work without necessarily being in the building all the time to do that. Okay, so let's get real about that. If we can give people something of an option, and I know we're having a heck of a time trying to figure out hybrid and remote and all that. That's for another episode. But the bottom line is people who can will often prefer to some degree to do remote work. And I'm going to tie that back in a little bit to things that have to do with health, things that have to do with economics. Okay, there are underpinning reasons why people want or need to not necessarily be in the office all the time. It's dang expensive and difficult and annoying in many parts of America to have to drive my butt somewhere. I can't get proper, public transit. God forbid we should have that. So that's going to be a challenge. It costs money. Gas is not exactly cheap these days. Plus you got to pay car insurance and maintenance and on parking and on and on and on it goes. And I got to sit in traffic. Believe me, I had a job where I used to go 40 miles one way and sit in traffic for the better part of 2.5 hours a day. I don't know about you, but I'm sitting there thinking all the time, what would you do with an extra couple hours in your day if you didn't have to sit in your car, right? It's stuff like that that starts to add up. So if it can be done to some degree, allow for some of it to be done to some degree. That's something you can do. You have a level of control over that, unless for some reason your business utterly and absolutely cannot allow that to happen, which I get, most can't. Desire for autonomy. People want to have a level of control over what they're doing instead of being told all the time what to do, or the worst case scenario is being given responsibility without any authority over it. Okay? So the ability to say, can I make some level of decisions for myself? I shouldn't always be told. I should be empowered. Love that word. Empower people to say, hey, you get to make some choices. Maybe it's choices on what you work on. Maybe it's autonomy or choices around what your work schedule is, who you get to work with. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities in the realm of people want a little more autonomy, okay, a little more control. Don't we all like a little level of control over our lives? I think we do. Because it's very stressful, and this is going to go back into, following the mind leap back into some of the mental health stuff I'm going to touch on. When we don't have that, it's stressful and it's exhausting. When I don't feel like I have any level of control over anything, or your employees don't, or frankly, maybe you sometimes don't, right? It doesn't feel good. Human beings want to have that, a level of that. So what can you do in that space to give people a little more there? Entrepreneurship is part of it. You want to know why people don't want to work for you? Because they'd rather go work for themselves. If you don't give them what they want and need, they may very well turn into your competitor. And kind of good for them in a way. Really? Like, come on. We have a far more entrepreneurial mindset in our younger generations. I'm going to talk about younger generations in a few minutes as well. Stick around. Okay, but that whole entrepreneurial spirit, there's much more that could be done in the realm of having people think and act, even within your business, with more of an entrepreneurial mindset. In other words, if they feel that they have a level of ownership, they've actually got skin in the game beyond the paycheck, they might actually rise to the occasion for you and start thinking about, yeah, I actually really care about how things get done around here. Because I feel like I have a piece of the pie, right? So you could do some things that would allow people to be somewhat entrepreneurial even within your business. But there are certainly people who are just checking out, taking the risk. And yeah, it's a big risk. And yes, we know statistically a lot of companies fail for a variety of reasons. That'll be another episode as well. But the reality check is a lot of people would just say, look, I'd rather be my own dang boss and take the risk and bust a gut to go do that than put up with whatever crappy pants stuff is going on over here, where I have a manager who craps on me all the time and doesn't know how to lead. I don't trust my leaders, and nobody cares what I'm doing over here, and I'm back to nothing's meaningful, et cetera, et cetera. You can tie any number of these threads together. They're sick of it. They're sick of it. And, they should be. So that's something else that we need to bring into the mix. And of course, kind of with that too comes the freelancing and gig work. More people are just saying, hey, I will make ends meet by doing freelancing kind of work, again, which is kind of entrepreneurial, which allows them to have autonomy, which lets them have more meaningful work. Because when you're doing some of that stuff, depending on what you get to do, like if you're on Fiverr and you've got a great skill set and you can make, and some people can make gobs of money doing things that they actually love doing. Do you see where these dots are connecting up? For some people, the freelancing and the gig work fulfills a lot of the things that the traditional work environment isn't giving them. I don't get to do this kind of work. I don't get to, I've never been able to find the job that fits for this. People haven't let me have the flexibility that can come from this. The other flip side is, people are just finding that the work world is dissatisfying. Maybe the scheduling is the problem. And I'm going to talk about that. We're going to, we're going to weave that back in. Freelancing and gig work allows people to have more freedom of choice in terms of their scheduling, when they work, what else they've got to deal with, that work-life balance stuff that comes into play. There's a whole host of reasons why people might just opt out of your business and applying for jobs with you or sticking around with you because they can fulfill those needs elsewhere. Or maybe they see that it's more lucrative. Like, weirdly enough, so a couple part-time gigs could pay better than your one full-time. If you're even bothering to give them full-time, which a lot of companies are playing the game of, I just give you that tiny slice less than what it would take to put you over the hump and give you benefits and actually make you belong here. Great for the bottom line, bean counter, but ultimately you're going to drive people out the door with that attitude. Am I being saucy enough? I hope so. I understand this outrage. I really, really do. That is a crap deal. And why should anybody thank you for it? So they might be going that direction. Housing and location flexibility ties back to the remote work preference, the freelancing, the gig work, whatever, the autonomy. Like, hey, why do I have to, again, if my work is kind of remote, why do I have to live in the same town or next to the same town or close by, right? This is where we hear horror stories all the time. And I see a lot of this. I guess my algorithm feeds this stuff for me. But, how many people have gone into a job interview that was posted as remote, fully remote, air quotes around that one. And then when they get into the interview, they find out that's a lie. And actually, I need you to be in the building on a regular basis. Why? Which, of course, erodes trust like crazy. Like, now you have zero credibility. Why would I want to work with you? Liar, liar, pants on fire about your job posting, which, by the way, will probably bite you at some point on something like Glassdoor or somewhere on social media. People will comment on that. Not cool. And the other thing is, have you paid any attention to what's going on in the housing and economy these days in this country? It's freaking expensive. It's incredibly hard to get a house. It's incredibly hard to insure a house. Rent is through the roof. People are trying to exit and move to places. It's this constant, what I would call, race to the bottom. How do I get myself into cheaper and cheaper places because I can't afford it? And I'm going to touch on later the crapshoot about the wage gap. People aren't being paid enough to support living where they work or near where they work. So people end up having to be miles away from where you are if they can get away with it. And again, we're back to whether or not they can actually do remote work, but it's incredibly challenging. If you don't have a healthy, robust economy and community that supports the fact that your business needs workers and it's unaffordable for your kind of worker to live in the area, you're going to have a hell of a harder time, aren't you? Now, is that strictly on you? No, not 100%, but there are some other avenues you could take. Are you not advocating for things in your community? Are you not talking about things from a Chamber of Commerce perspective or talking to your congressperson or whatever and saying, hey, I'm having a horrible, we are the businesses, especially small and mid-sized businesses, are the lifeblood of the American economy. What are we doing to make it possible for people to successfully embed themselves into that? Probably not enough. Okay, so I could go further, but hey, I only got so much time here today. But I'm saying there's a lump right there of what's going on. All right, here's another little cluster that came out of this MSN article that I think is worth looking at. And, it certainly is in my wheelhouse, especially for somebody who cares deeply about workforce development, making sure that the people part of your equation is set right. So we have challenges and issues around education and training opportunities. Hello, wake up call to business leaders in America. Your employees are not going to come to the table with everything that you want on the checklist. They don't come pre-programmed like software to know how to do everything. You're going to have to, at some point, do something to help them learn and grow. Period. Even if they have a degree, they don't know everything. And it changes on a regular basis. The amount of information that we are learning is expanding exponentially, and the pace is quick. Why would I, as your employee, think that there's any kind of path for retention or sticking around with you if you can't even be bothered to give me the basics of helping me get, like I said, tools in my toolbox to know how successfully I can do my job? If we can't even hit bare minimum for that, we have a problem. We have a real disconnect. And we know, there's lots of other research that's gone on in the last couple of years. I think it's to the tune of about 3/4, give or take, really close to 3/4 of today's workforce wants and is looking for training and development and advancement opportunities. They want to learn. They want to grow. They want to know that there's a path to stick around with you and go places and do things. Remember what I said about meaningful work? Part of meaningful work is giving them progression in a meaningful direction. So they're looking for that. Now, if you can't talk about that, if you can't qualify that, hey, we have a learning and development culture in my organization. We care. We have learning paths. We will help you. We will support you. We will fund you. We will invest in our human beings to make them the best people possible while they work with us. Yeah, you are going to have a harder time finding people who want to work for you because you don't care. The bottom line is you don't care enough if you're not willing to put that in. There's also issues around skills mismatch. There's a lot of this stuff going on in the interweb, and there's a lot of articles around this where, again, employers have insane expectations around what they think people are going to bring to the table. Okay. Do I need a master's degree to be your mail clerk? I don't think so. Now, I know during pandemic, some of this started to change and move in the direction of saying there were employers who started to drop the requirement of, like, honestly, do you need a degree for certain jobs? Probably not nearly to the extent that people think. And I'm going to touch on generations again at some point here because it came up, but I'm just going to say, when you look at the generational differences, what people's needs and attitudes are, it is ridiculous to think that our younger generation workers, they're the least experienced of the bunch. They're keen to learn. They want the opportunities, but they're not going to bring all the skills to the table, right? And on the flip side of that, don't look at your older generation. Don't look at your Xers or your boomers and start going, they can't learn. They're a waste of time. They don't understand anything. They're not tech savvy enough. So screw them. We're never going to hire them either. Hello? No wonder you're having issues getting candidates in the door because you've just knocked off a whole pile of potential talent, if you're thinking that. So skills mismatches can be an issue, right? Or you're looking for stuff that nobody's going to have, or it's going to be harder to get it. And how about you train people up while they're in your organization? You get to train them the way that you like. And again, it's more meaningful for them and they're more likely to stick around. It's a great investment, but not everybody's going to come to the table with what you're looking for all the time. And of course, there's changing industry demands. Well, last year we wanted this. This year we want a different flavor of the month. Things are moving. Things are changing. We have new tech. Now we're going to have to know how to do something about EI. We're going to have to know something about artificial intelligence, AI, right? Like there are going to be some changes in what's going on. And, are you tuned into what your industry needs? How are you conveying that information to your potential employees and saying, hey, like we are a dynamic industry. Things are changing. It's rather exciting. We will help you keep up. Or maybe you could look at it from the perspective of people who come into your industry who aren't necessarily fully knowledgeable about your industry. It might bring a really powerful perspective that you never thought of before that would be very valuable for you. Fresh eyes and ears, right? Bottom line is these are some other reasons where people are just saying, well, I'm not going to apply because they put together this shopping list of stuff that they're expecting, and I don't feel like I hit a lot of the things on the list. So why bother? Or they're not talking about helping me get the skills that I need, or, I'm confused. I've tried, multiple times over months to try to get at this stuff and I'm not getting anywhere with it. So again, these are things for the most part that, it's not entirely up to you to control industry demands, but you're part of the industry and you can decide whether you demand it or if you want to do something differently. But the education and the skills thing, you can do something about that in your business. And I encourage you to do so. All right. Here's another little bucket that came out of this. Sip of coffee to keep me going. This was in the realm of tying issues of why, quote unquote, people don't want to work anymore, tied to health and well-being. Holy Dinah. And there's a lot of information out there around this. And, again, pandemic did not invent this. The cracks were already in the system prior to the pandemic. Okay. What the pandemic did was open up those cracks way wider and make it more obvious what was going on. And truly didn't a lot of us learn life really is short and precious. And being sick all the time, being freaked out all the time, being unwell is no way to live your life. Okay? Fundamental. You know the old adage, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything? Let's run with that. Okay? If you've ever been sick, and you know how crappy you feel, like there is no badge of honor. There should be no badge of honor that says, get your ass out of bed and get to work anyway. Bring your sniffly, sick self and infect everybody else. Sit around and play the game of like, I'm so here. I'm a hero because I dragged my sorry ass into the building today. No, people are sick of that. People are sick of being sick and tired of being sick. So we have legitimate health concerns. Yes, I know for most of us, the pandemic is in the rearview mirror, which is awesome. Thank goodness, right? But here's the other thing. Some people still do have legitimate health concerns, and some people had health concerns before we had a pandemic. It may not even be around things related to COVID, okay? It's just general health concerns like, hey, my loved one is going through chemotherapy. It's really important because their immune system is compromised that I don't bring compromising things into the household and make them sicker or possibly kill them. That's a pretty legit reason to be thinking about whether or not you apply for a certain kind of job or whether you're willing to work or not. Would you put your loved one's life on the line for one of the jobs at your company? Especially if it's not one of the top paying jobs, not that money is really the equation, but go ahead, put a price on it. I'll wait. Okay, so think about that. They have legitimate concerns, legitimate reasons and issues, whether it's themselves or others. There's a higher demand now for work-life balance. Like I said, we came to realize life is short and precious. And there's a lot of things that have happened in the last handful of years that are making it more challenging for people to juggle everything. It's really hard to go see a doctor or a dentist when they run the same hours as your business. I can't do that in off-work hours, and I don't get the flexibility to handle things. My kid is sick. What am I supposed to do? This is another thing that's on the list. Child and elder care challenges. I was just listening to something on the radio this morning that we're still talking about this. We have a child care crisis in America. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's ugly. It is highly unaffordable. Tons of childcare places shut down and never reopened during pandemic. And so guess what? We've lost a chunk of the entire population that could have come to work and can't because they need to be at home looking after their kids, or they can't afford to spend their entire paycheck paying somebody else to look after their kid so they can come into work. Let's just pause for a second there. Think about that. Let's unravel that just for a second. Can't find health care or can't find childcare. Probably can't find health care either. Can't find childcare. This is another reason, by the way, this is not really specifically on this list, but it was part of what I was hearing on this story on the radio, and it makes perfect sense. We also have record high absence rates in our schools. Incidentally, as a business leader, children are the one thing that you really should be thinking about. They are your future pipeline. When you think of supply chain, this is the most important part of the supply chain ever. Your future workers. How well educated are they? That'll be another episode. Anyway, bottom line is we have a ton of kids who are not attending school. And part of why that happened is because we have a lot of families who need the older kids in the family to stay away from school to babysit the younger siblings in the family while the parents go out and try to work and keep a roof over their head and food on the table. There you go. Imagine that. This sounds like something out of Charles Dickens, and he was writing this stuff in the 1800s. But here we are. Okay, that's just unconscionable. That's just ridiculous. So if you want to kind of start having a labor pool who loves you, and you want to start, doing something about how do I attract and retain people who actually want to work, you might want to think about what could you do, get clever, get creative in the space of helping people with childcare. The flip side of that could be elder care. We have a lot of people, what we call the sandwich generation. They're both looking after younger children and raising and parenting them, and they're also now having to step in and deal with helping their aging parents. We have an aging population issue going on in this country as well. Baby boomers are going off a cliff on this one. We have a massive generational cohort who is getting to the age and stage of not only retiring out of the system and out of the economy, but also needing more and more assistance and help from their adult children. Well, that's challenging when it's like, what am I going to do? Go into work or go help my parent get their dialysis done, or get to a hospital, or get some, help them recover from hip surgery. These are real and really tough choices people are making. They're not just making this crap up to sit there and go, I don't feel like working for you. It might be, I don't have any choice, or I don't feel that I have any choice because employers aren't really giving me any options. Now we're back to autonomy. We're back to flexibility, right? And burnout and mental health. Holy cow, are we ever talking about that? Again, could be a whole other episode. I fundamentally believe that a big chunk of why people get burnt out is because at work, when we're not getting meaningful work, or we're not well aligned with the kind of work that we're being tasked or asked to do, it's exhausting to do stuff you're not good at, or you don't feel comfortable doing because you weren't trained to do it, or trained properly. You're not getting supported. You're not getting appreciated, right? All those kinds of things. It's exhausting to go into a place where it feels like nobody notices and nobody cares. All they want to do is crack the whip and, extract as much blood, sweat, and tears out of you as possible every stinking day. Yeah, we have mental health issues. We are stressed. This is a stressful world, a stressful economy, a stressful world to live in right now. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on. And anybody who knows the basics of Maslow's hierarchy of needs says nobody's going to be your top performer, and nobody's really going to care to be in your industry when what they're most worried about is whether or not they're going to live, or whether or not they can get food on the table, or maybe they don't feel safe in your workplace environment. All that has an impact on people. And any of that mental energy strips away their ability to work or possibly even think about work. It is debilitating. It is as much a disease as cancer or diabetes. Okay? Real deal. So what are we doing in the space of wellness? You could do a lot of things around helping people with health concerns, showing that you care, being compassionate and empathetic about it. There's a lot of things you could get clever and do around work-life balance or work-life integration, if you want to call it that. I mean, you have choices as a business leader. You could potentially do some things there. You could talk to your employees about, hey, how could we do a better job? What could we do in the space of making sure that you are able to look after yourself and your loved ones so that you can come to work, rest assured that you could focus in on your work. They're going to want to stick around and work with you if you do that. Again, this could be a whole other episode, but there's big reasons here. All right. I touched on this before, and I'm going to touch on it again. This is one of my favorite things to rant and rave about sometimes. Shift in generational values. Okay, here's the reality check as well. The largest proportion of the U.S. economy when it comes to the labor force is now 45 and under. Okay? It's down to our millennials are our biggest group. These are the folks that, give or take, were born between about 1980 and about 1996. And then our Gen Zs who followed them are rapidly coming into the mix. These are the folks that were, give or take, born between about 1997 and 2012. They're graduating college, they're graduating high school, they're getting out into the workforce for the first time, and they see the world differently. And I, for one, appreciate that. Like, Gen Z is not afraid to raise their hand and say, I'm okay with letting you know I'm not okay today. And we need to talk about this stuff. Their bullshit meter runs hot and high. They're going to call you out on stuff. They care, and they want you to care. And if you don't care about what they care about, they don't care to work with you. They have come into a world where climate change is very real and has a real impact on them. They are saddled with an insane amount of educational debt to make sure that, they have the degree that you're looking for to work in the mailroom. whatever, on and on it could go. So what they care about, they are far more open, they are far more accepting for all for all the clamp down and the denial around diversity, equity, inclusion. I don't know where you stand on that one, but let me tell you something. They care about that. They want to work in places where they feel valued, they feel included, they don't feel like, they have to, go to the beat of somebody else's drum. One of the biggest favors you could do your business is get everybody to understand each other on an intergenerational level. But our younger generation people, their mindset is different. Their priorities are different. Their values are different. And if our values don't match up very well between us as individuals and businesses, we don't want to work for you. We can't stick around. It's like bad dating. We could do it for a while, but we're not going to be marriage material. Okay. And that goes in with ESG, environmental, social, and governance concerns. If you can say anything in that realm that's positive, like, hey, this is what we do to reduce our environmental impact. This is what we do to give back socially to our communities. This is, we are whatever. We're this, that, and the other thing. This is how we are transparent. This is how we run our business in a way that isn't all shady and creepy and hypocritical. People will pay attention to that and they will appreciate that, especially our younger generation, largest cohort of workers. So this could potentially, if you're honest about it, and this is going to be really important as a business leader, don't say this stuff if you don't live up to it. If you can't walk the walk, don't talk the talk. Okay? Because like I said, the bullshit meter it's on high. They're paying attention. But if you can be the kind of organization and you have these choices to say things like, hey, we really get this. We really care about you. We want to meet people at the level that they're at. We are committed and caring. We are good business, community, corporate citizens, even if you're not quite a corporation, quote unquote. Yeah, that will attract some people to your cause. There will be more people who want to work for you than not. If you don't care and, you're not, you don't have skin in the game and you just want to make as much profit as possible and blah, ha, 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 ha. I saw an article yesterday that said there was one company who blows my mind too, decided we're not going to provide coffee for the employees anymore. Okay, so you pull up to the front of the building as the owner and leader of this business in your expensive luxury car while you tell your employees that you can't be bothered, for cost cutting and savings measures, no more coffee for you. Bring your own. Like, shut up. No wonder people don't want to work in these places. Okay, so, if you can truthfully and honestly do some things, and there's a lot you can do in the realm of getting different generations in the workplace to understand each other. There are definitely things within your power of control over environment, social, and governance. 100%. You can do a lot of stuff there, and it would definitely move the dial for some people wanting to work for you. All right, rounding it out. Some of these are going to be harder for businesses to individually tackle, but let's look at this. Low wages is definitely something that you have a level of control over. If you are not paying enough, people are never going to, sign on for this, right? Now, I've argued, and I will continue to argue, it's not always about the money, but let's be real. If we're not working for wages, it's called volunteering. And most people can't keep a roof over their head and send their kid to school and keep the car running on volunteering alone. Okay, so you absolutely have to get real about being competitive in your wages. Another article related to this one that I'm just going to loosely tie this in, benefits is now table stakes. If you are not giving people health benefits to some degree, they're also going to walk away. Okay, and it's ridiculous that we have to tie health benefits to our job status, but that's a whole other topic for another day. But if you're not competitive in what you're paying people, then forget it. Early retirement is another one. Like I said a few minutes ago, boomers are starting to walk out the door. Okay. So, and that's a big chunk of what has been the labor force. So a lot of expertise is walking out the door, and a lot of them are just opting out and saying like, hey, if there were job cuts somewhere, the older you get, typically the harder it is for you to find work. And this can go back to entrepreneurial things as well. We may see that a lot of people who are in that boomer or even Gen X environment will sit there and say, nobody wants to hire me at this point in the game. They think I'm just going to retire in a few years. I'm going to quit. I'm expensive. I'm whatever. Fine. I won't even try to apply for a job with you. I'll just go start my own consulting business, or I'll go, I'll do gig work or whatever. So retirement doesn't always mean that they're not working, but they may step away. Maybe you package them out. Okay, that's your choice. But, some of them are just saying it's too chaotic, it's too crazy for health reasons and a whole pile of other things. I'm just going to step out off of this crazy three-ring circus that the work world has become. I'm done. I'm tired of this. That's a distinct possibility. Not much you can do about the increased unemployment benefits other than to say, if you're not paying decent wages, yeah, I guess some people, and I don't think it's a big slice of the economy, to be perfectly honest, but I can understand where some people would say, economically, it would make no sense to go to work to make the same amount or possibly less money than unemployment benefits would give you. Duh. If you want people to work for you, you've got to pay better than the absolute bare minimum social safety net does. Be a competitor, be a player in this space, show people that, you value their skills and their knowledge and their labor and their commitment to you. That's just table stakes, but okay, there is a slice of the population that, that could be the case. And then there's the impact of immigration restrictions. Again, in many respects, difficult for, individual businesses to necessarily do something about. But let's face it, there are jobs in our economy for a variety of reasons that everybody in America sits there and goes, I don't want to do that. That's nasty, dirty, gross, difficult work. I don't want to be a farm laborer. I don't want to work in slaughter facilities. Ugh. I don't want to be the janitor. That's beneath me. I mean, we've even done a whole rigmarole around trades, like trades became a dirty word. Okay, let's cut all the, let's everybody go get a degree. That's where your future's at. Okay, that's starting to bite us in the ass. And the immigration restriction thing also means that we don't have enough people. We still don't have enough people to fill all the jobs. And depending on the kinds of jobs that you have, it might be even harder because, your fellow quote unquote Americans, they don't want to do it either for a variety of reasons. That could be a whole other discussion in its own right. But anyway, so you could at least look at this in terms of you can have a level of control over wages. Sorry, I'm just going to take a little sip here. Need a little sauce to wash down my throat. I've been so excited about this. You can do something about your wages. It's possible. You could even tap into the early retirement. You could probably entice some people out of one kind of retirement and back into your workforce if you really thought about it and got a little clever. So bottom line is, I'm going to wrap it up here. There's a whole host of things going on, some of which seem more obvious than others, most of which are somehow related to each other. And I've just done the scratch the surface thing. But here's the bottom line. This stuff is expensive for you. This is very, very costly. If you don't think about it, get on top of it and do something about it. I promise you, it is hurting your bottom line. You think you're saving money. Oh, you think you're saving money by not giving them coffee anymore. Actually, it's going to make it a lot more expensive. Turnover. Excuse me. Sorry. Hairball. Whew, that last little nugget is just going down with a spicy sauce there, people. It's expensive. Ignoring this stuff and hoping it goes away is not going to help your bottom line. Okay? You've got to invest in your people. You've got to start investing in things that make people want to be in your work environment. And as I shared, hopefully it was clear to you all along, but I'm going to keep pounding on this. A lot of this stuff is preventable. You can and you should do something about it. It is possible. And it doesn't have to break the bank or your brain to come up with the ideas to do it. I will promise you this much. If you do nothing about anything that I just shared in this episode, congratulations. Carry on, status quo. But I don't ever want to hear you saying to anybody else, people just don't want to work anymore. That's crap. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Nuggets with Sauce. I am your host, Michelle Arentz, and this was a flaming hot one, but I can't help myself, and I'm not even going to try. So hope to catch you in future episodes. And meanwhile, try to make your business a better one. Thanks for joining this episode of Nuggets with Sauce. I hope we fed your appetite for insights and information on how to improve your business. Be sure to like and subscribe so you never go hungry for more thought leadership.